Join me, Mark Windows, for Windows on the World live every Sunday 9 to 11 p.m. GMT. Check out our archive and programme stream at windowsontheworld.net. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Windows on the World. We've been very busy doing these live streams recently on Wednesday, 8 p.m. on the Windows on the World YouTube channel. I've also been doing some guesting on the Eric Von Essex channel. We've been having a bit of fun doing this, and it's a great way of getting very intense information out in a very relaxed way. I'm enjoying that. We also did a great interview with Edmund Marriage about the Shining Ones, yes, those who inhabited ancient Sumeria. And thanks very much to Mike, who sent in a remarkable document called Devils and Evil Spirits of Babylon. And it ties into a lot of the stuff that I've been looking at over the years. And it actually ties into what's going on at the moment. We've got ghosts, just like they had. We've got the possessed, just like they had then. And we've got the demons. Those are pure evil. I think people know that, though. But, yeah, that's alongside what we're going to be talking about tonight. We're talking about how people have been basically possessed by this hive mind. And a lot of it came out of communitarianism, which runs alongside the climate change agenda to brainwash the entire world. We've done loads of shows on this. Do check out one we did last week before last, actually, because last week we did the big green ego. That's about those who've been so mentored into the program that they can't see outside it, and everything is a conspiracy theory, and all of a sudden it's right wing. It's very strange, this, because even people on the left wing are right wing now, so I think maybe they're just two wings on the same bird, because we're talking about a communitarian agenda. And communitarianism came out of the big society under David Cameron. Obama did the same thing in America. We've talked about this a lot. I had a great conversation with Lark in Texas this week, and I'm going to be in touch with him. He's done some fantastic work exposing this agenda, and I generally call it the hive mind, basically the new system, but it does come from this idea of communitarianism. So I'm going to go into what that is, and also I'd like to welcome our friend from Tasmania who's just dropped into chat, which is great. Hey, this is Global Local. The Global Local agenda, it's working. We're mentoring people out of the hive and into the mind. That's great, that, isn't it? Vandalman Island, thank you very much for tuning in and spreading the word. We've got listeners all over the world now, and this is great because we're doing what the globalists do. We're thinking globally. And also, we're acting locally, and we're going to get into that tonight. I've got quite a lot of stuff to get through, actually, because, as usual, everything ties together. So what I'm going to get into first is some dates that we're doing. Now, on Saturday the 25th, we're in Fairbourne, Gwynedd, in North Wales, at the Freog and Fairbourne Village Hall, Beach Road, Fairbourne, LL38 2EX, and there's an Eventbrite bookings page on windowsontheworld.net. Please do go there and have a look. If you're in Wales, you need to come to this because Fairbourne is going to be decommissioned. That means that all the houses are going to be compulsory purchased at some point in the future, and the people are going to have to move out. Now, the organisations such as Lloyd's, who oversee the insurance of buildings and the futures of what's going to happen, are looking carefully into the evidence of climate change. Now, the problem you've got here is that who's giving them the evidence? I don't know whether you will remember, but we did a show with Niels Axel-Morner, one of the leading experts in sea levels, who used to be an IPCC panellist. That's the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. He used to be a panellist for them for many years. I think he was on three of their reports. They have these documents called the AR. I think we're on to the AR6 now. And they basically give you computer models of what's going to happen in the future. And guess what? None of it's happened. Well, what a surprise. Because there's an agenda behind it all, which we talk about pretty much every week. But we're probably one of the only radio stations in the UK talking about it. And I'd like to thank everyone who's had me on their shows. It seems to be spreading out. Hello to Kieran Boyle in Northern Ireland. I've done some great shows with Kieran. And to Richard Willits, who's working at Iconic Media now. And to, everybody else including, of course, Eric von Essex is probably in chat and up to some mischief as usual. But yes, do come along to our show in Fairbourne. It starts at, I think, 11 a.m. It's all on the website. But if you live in Wales, this coastal depopulation, if it happens in Fairbourne, it is going to spread. So we have the world's leading expert in sea levels who will testify in court to say that this will never happen. What a golden opportunity for anybody who lives on a coastal region, especially in North Wales. So do come along to that and we'll show you some facts. That's all we're here to do. And I love researching and finding this stuff out because we are giving you the bigger picture, how everything actually joins together. A local paper did get in touch with me, the Cambrian Times, and I gave him all the information. Whether they call me a conspiracy theorist or not, he has the information. I gave him all the links to what I was talking about. I gave him the paper written by Niels Axel-Morner when he actually resigned from the IPCC, calling them out on their fraud. So do come along to that if you're in the North Wales area in Gwynedd. On the 8th of February, we're at the Corner House, which is 1 Christchurch Street, Frome, BA11 1QA, Somerset. That's 6 p.m. So 11 a.m. till 6 p.m. We finish at 6 and then we'll probably have a Q&A. And there's an Eventbrite bookings page for that. On the 9th of February, 12 till 7:30, the Dartmouth Inn, Totnes, that's just come in. So please attend that. If you're in Somerset, come along because we have some fantastic information for you. And no, all you people out there, it's not negative, it's just fact. So we're going to give you information from the Tree of Knowledge. Yes, the Tree of Knowledge, which is available to everybody. So I wanted to get on first to something that's been cropping up quite a lot recently. There's a debate about 5G going on, and we've covered the 5G agenda, which is, of course, part of the Internet of Things, part of the Smart Cities agenda, and it fits in directly to that. I did an article a while ago, and it was called 5G Debate Hijacked by Globalists. Well, who would have thought? Now, what this is all about is when you have a protest group, that protest group has to be absorbed into the agenda. Like Extinction Rebellion are, on the face of it, an anti-globalist organisation. They're a globalist-backed organisation. So the globalists need the anti-globalists to implement their policies, which is what Extinction Rebellion are there. They're lobbying for globalist policies, such as the citizens' assemblies, which we've covered. Do see our shows on the citizens' assemblies because we expose exactly what they're doing. They're steering the public into a predetermined outcome through a very devious method called the Delphi technique. So tell all your friends and your neighbours about that because you will be steered into the inevitable conclusion. What's the inevitable conclusion? Well, to be carbon taxed, to have all gas ripped out and to retrofit your house. What does that mean? Well, it means it starts at £25,000, as we reported last week. And this is absolutely accurate information. It's all written down and it's all the result of the citizens' assemblies. How come the citizens' assemblies are all saying the same thing? They all want to retrofit their houses and pay banks £25,000. Well, what's going on here? Oh, it's something to do with the World Bank and the Global Environmental Facility, which was set up in 1987. But that's a conspiracy theory, you see, to the people who read The Guardian. Now, the word conspiracy theory is what Guardian readers say in response to a known fact. So we're going to get into all that tonight. But I did this article called 5G Debate Hijacked by Globalists. Do have a look at it. It's on the windowsontheworld.net website. And we also include in the article a video called Enablers for Achieving Agenda 2030. I have quotes that come out of that video, which is on YouTube, so it's not a conspiracy theory. The Global Governance Summit happens every year. The one this year was in Dubai. In a month's time, we have the Wild 11 Conference, which is the World Wilderness Conference of 1987, brought forward to 2011. Yes, they've been having them ever since 1987, when Maurice Strong, an oil billionaire and a banker called Edmund de Rothschild, along with people who were lobbying for global governance, actually invented the global warming. Really? How could they have done that? Well, some people have a lot of influence because globalists think big and the public think small. Very, very simple. But yes, so this 5G debate has been hijacked by a group who are linked to the Club of Budapest, which is in turn linked to the Club of Rome. Hey, guess what? Did you know that the Club of Rome actually stated that in absence of wars, famine and the like, global warming would fit the bill. The enemy of humanity, therefore, was humanity itself. Did you know that that came out of a report by the Club of Rome? And it came out of a thing called Limits to Growth. And then we had a follow-up to Limits to Growth, which is called the First Global Revolution. All of this stuff is written down and it's easy to find. So, conspiracy fact deniers had better beware, because we can prove it all. So, yeah. Well, we got these gatekeeper sites that sprung up to try and control the 5G debate. So, in other words, we'll protest about 5G as long as you protest for us about global warming. That sounds like a good deal, doesn't it? Well, it's called worldshift.earth. Oh, very original. Again, have a look at the websites. They're all to the same template. They promote the global deal for nature. Oh, a global deal for nature? I thought nature was a common treasure trove. I thought we were given dominion over everything that creepeth on the earth. Oh no, not under the UN Global Action Plan, you don't. No, you can't do that. Worldshift.org. Yes, have a look at an article we did called New Age Global Governance and the Gaia religion, which dovetails into the Global Action Plan of Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals. Here we have the collectivism, the hive mind, the communitarianism. And remember that that article is on windowsontheworld.net. It's got everything you need to know. And some of the people who are linked to this website are linked to guess who? The granddaddy of climate change himself. No, not Maurice Strong, not Edmund de Rothschild, but coming in third this week. Yes, for the third week running. In fact, for the 15th year running, Al Gore. Yes. So, yes, he's consulted on that. In fact, one of the scientists, we'll put that in inverted commas because scientist is a much maligned term these days. One of the scientists actually worked for Al Gore. You couldn't make this up, but they do. So let's just get into this today. And if you want to know a bit about the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, listen to Professor Frederick Setz, who was the former president of the National Academy of Science. It's in that article. Good quote for you here. If the IPCC is incapable of following its most basic procedures, it would be best to abandon the entire IPCC protest, or at least that part that is concerned with the scientific evidence on climate change, and look for more reliable sources of advice on this important question. I have never witnessed a more disturbing corruption of the peer review process than the events which led up to this IPCC report. So we've got more of those, loads of quotes that you can spread round to your neighbours. In our talks, the bigger picture, or as we call it, the real Citizens' Assembly, because Citizens' Assemblies are being rolled out to steer the public into losing what little rights they've got left. So, right and left, yes, it doesn't really matter. But let's just get into now communitarianism, because I'm going to be doing more on this in the weeks and months to come. We've covered it for a long time, probably for the past 10 years. Basically, it's a mentoring program to get people into a hive mind. It can be actually compared with parasitism. It's a parasitic thing, which means everybody is sucked into a hive mind, a mind virus. Anything outside it is demonized. It's a non-mutual, symbiotic relationship between groups whereby one group, the parasitic group, benefits at the expense of the other, the host group. We're the hosts, they're the parasites. Who are they? Well, they are those who are mentoring you into losing all your rights under the man-made anthropogenic climate change agenda, the policies of Agenda 2030. What's that? Is it a conspiracy theory? No, we're going to get onto that later, because this week we have a great article from news.com Australia, which actually calls out the conspiracy theorists while actually reaffirming the points the so-called conspiracy theorists are making. So in actual fact, it's a huge own goal for the mainstream media. But let's get on to this. The controlling of all narratives is the aim, so everything comes under the banner of what? Let's have a listen. The common good, interdependence, collectivism. So the parasites have the hosts infected with enough mind virus to be eaten alive by the lies. The virus has spread everywhere, and those uninfected are under constant attack, like we have been. Absolutely, under constant attack. Well, it's a kind of verbal diarrhea attack which revolves around it's a conspiracy theory, you are working for right-wing think tanks, or, well, that's about it really. There's a few others that they throw in, but those are the main ones at the moment. But the new extremism is the assault on all logic and fact. The communitarian agenda uses the climate change agenda as its most useful container. The takeover of all public opinion is done through change agents and those enabling change in what was known 10 years ago as the big society. The use of sound bites is essential, like transitioning, social justice, social equity. They sound great, don't they? Climate denier, conspiracy theorist, these terms are repeated by those who have been trained through the programme. The media programme of gifting sound bites to the masses is an intelligence services-led operation, as we have reported in the past. The rise of the far right, as announced by MI5's Mark Rowley before he resigned, and then put into the news narratives. The main one in the UK is The Guardian. Not a true word comes out of that counterintelligence propaganda sheet. The communitarian agenda is rolled out through NGOs and think tanks, as we have described much over the years. The companies training and mentoring the population are in every public-facing organisation, every political party, and everything which has anything to do with public engagement. And those who are imposing it call this a conspiracy theory, as they have been trained not to have an argument, just to dispense sound bites. So another thing that is used often against the public now is you are being vexatious. Well, asking questions is not vexatious. And the best thing to do in these circumstances is respond accordingly. I've won court cases against councils and always use statutory declarations. They are the best way of truth because they go straight into a court. Just a bit of an aside there for anyone who's having problems, because stat decs are the truth because they are your sworn testimony, and any hearsay or accusations against you have been rebutted and wiped out by a stat dec unless they challenge you. So that's an interesting little legal point there. It is important that any argument is reduced to this kind of relentless and unforgiving narrative which is being thrown. Britain has now been completely subverted, and those who are in Parliament have been neutered, and only those who promote the soundbite simplicity get promoted in the media. We're going to get onto that in a short while. So the idea of the new system is that everyone is an agent. The Psychological Operations Unit of the British Army, to the trained useful idiots who lie to the public and those on councils and in all public-facing institutions, are all the same thing. They all say the same thing. We've covered this on many shows before. So, those in media are easily led and manipulated. They also love to be seen virtue signalling. So the hive mind has to respond by going conspiracy theory. They have to do it. It's part of the mind virus. And the children are state agents through the climate change agenda. Now, I've just seen this quote. I think it was on some BBC website. I think it was out of New Zealand, actually, connected to the BBC. It said, they're seeing stuff on social media on a daily basis, and none of it's good news. And the sense of powerlessness that comes from that is extremely distressing. So this is a psychological operation against the young. To disempower through fear is a potent weapon. In fact, it's the weapon of psychological warfare. So, climate change is psychological warfare, to indoctrinate and then get the host to protest for their own disempowerment. Extinction Rebellion. It's clever. The host is fully under control of the parasite. The psychological war is the only war that matters. The energy will be harvested and used. That's what these so-called protests are all about. Harvesting energy. The distraction and trivia will fill up the rest of the time. The BBC are very good at that. To find information which is useful, it is necessary to look outside the hive, and that is forbidden by the controllers. So, yes, next week there could be another manufactured psychological threat, another tool of undermining truth. But now I'm going to introduce our special guest tonight, and actually a bit of a stranger to this show recently, but no stranger to me, Mr. Piers Corbyn. Piers.
Hello.
There you go.
Good to be back after a few weeks, even a couple of months.
Well, yes, Windows Towers has had to relocate quite a lot.
That's right.
So, I wanted to run a few things by you before we get into what you've got to tell us. And this section of the show is called #retardation for repeaters. Now, The Sun has a story this week. I don't know whether you're aware of this, but Brits named Sir David Attenborough as their dream Prime Minister. What have you got to say about this, Piers?
Well, he's a disgrace to science. And interesting, he's not a climate scientist, but he's always labelled as the truth. Now, we in Action for Life and weatheraction.com are challenging David Attenborough and the BBC to have a public debate on whether or not climate change is real and whether or not the Australian fires are man-made.
The debate is over. It's time for action.
Anyway, by CO2. And of course, we expect they will not want to respond in any positive way. So we're going to do two things. On January the 31st, we're expecting to have a demonstration outside the BBC where we will be demanding the BBC have balance and that they organise a debate with Sir David Attenborough.
What do we want? Climate justice. When do we want it? Now.
Indeed. Yes.
Well, actually, Piers, this was a poll of 2,000 adults, believe it or not.
Right.
It was a poll of 2,000 adults, but do you know who they were? Subscribers to Sky TV.
Oh, right.
Okay, so a poll of 2,000 adults has revealed who they would like to see running the country. The popular naturalist beat close rivals, guess who? Stephen Fry and Richard Branson. Now, this is absolute definitive proof that the UK public are suffering something which is akin to the plague. This is a mind virus. This is absolute infection of the mind.
Well, yes, but the poll was a limited choice, I would say.
Yes. Let me just tell you what it says. His calming tones, love for the environment, and popularity with people of all ages saw him win more than a fifth of the vote. And now, like the walrus, I'm going to roll down the edge of the cliff, and I'm going to instruct people on the beach here in Australia, part of the Extinction Rebellion protest, to bury their heads in the sand, and I'm going to join them. There you go.
Yes. Well, of course, had Sir David Attenborough followed the truth put forward by David Bellamy, he would not be in his job now. David Bellamy, as you know, died on the 11th of December this year, the day before the general election, and was a great loss to humanity and science. And honest journalism. He stood up for the truth, spelt out the fact that climate change, as put forward by the man-made theory, is nonsense, and subsequently got the sack from all his posts. So we have a vast manipulation going on. And I think a thing to understand about the current situation is this story of the big fires in Australia is like a modern-day Reichstag fire. It's a worldwide brainwashing operation. And I think it is their last call. And what they're going to do after this is some massive robbery or organised oppression. Something very big is coming. And I suspect it'll come through the World Economic Forum in Davos, which is going to happen very shortly, where it's likely they're going to want to rob they're going to want to rob big operations, rob pension funds to fund so-called special projects to save the planet,
well,
which
Mark
are
Carney,
totally aimed at robbing you.
Mark Carney is not being made head of the climate change World Bank section of robbery. No. For nothing. No, exactly. This comes out of 1987. Maurice Strong set all this up, and this is what you can tell your conspiracy theorist friends who read The Guardian. The climate change agenda was the brainchild of an oil billionaire and a banker. Those are facts, and they cannot be refuted. So that's something to think about. However, what we're going to get onto now is...
Before we do that, can
Yes.
I give an extra bit of information?
Oh, yeah, okay.
We're going to have, look on weatheraction.com and Windows on the World to get the details. But January the 31st, we're going to have this demonstration,
Oh, yeah.
which is also Brexit Day. So we're also going to be demanding that we want the European Emission Trading Scheme dropped from UK policy. It ought to be dropped on Brexit, but who knows, because there's lots of shadowboxing going on. The second thing we want to advertise is on February the 27th, the 87th anniversary of the Reichstag fires, which were organised by the Nazis in order to imprison communists and anybody else they didn't like. That's the anniversary of it, so we're going to have demonstrations in different parts of the world under the banner of No More Reichstag Fires. February the 27th this year, and look on those websites for that.
Yes, I'd just like to carry on with our retardation for repeaters section. And this is about Chris Packham. Now, this is the definition of a useful idiot. And he's got a new TV show coming up where he's going to go to all the most crowded cities in the world and then tell you that the world's overpopulated. You see, this is what they do, isn't it? They go to somewhere like Rio. Well, I'll get into this because it's actually very, very funny.
All the people on the world were put together. They could stand on the Isle of Wight. Everybody in the world with about 1 square yard each.
That's collectivism, though, Piers.
It is collectivism, but you see, the idea the world is overpopulated is complete nonsense. You see, the resources are there. We treat the sea as if we're nomads now. There's 300 times more living space in the sea than on land. The land living space is vastly underused anyway. So probably world population could go up 600-fold with organisation.
Water world. Remember that?
Yep.
Yeah, there you go. That's the future. But yeah, it's in this lame article, Chris Packham reveals how finding punk music as an isolated and very unhappy teenager saved him from killing himself. Well, he says, we're all aware of the climate and environmental emergency. Let's roll this back.
Joe Strummer. I knew Joe Strummer.
I know you did. You used to. Well, do you know, in fact, that's I know Mick Jones.
Fantastic.
There you go then. We've got something in common, haven't we? We are punk rockers after all. Yeah. In our safe European home.
That's right.
White right, I want to write me own.
Yeah, London's burning.
London's burning, na. Yeah, that's great. Up and down a westway and in and out of lights. What a great traffic system. It's so bright. Well, you can't drive anymore. Yes. Hey, you know what? I actually met David Bellamy years ago, you know.
Yeah.
I was I was very short of money, and I had this agent, and he said,
for 10 bob.
No, don't interrupt, Piers. I don't interrupt you, but you do interrupt other people. Now, this is, it's not good. You're acting like a globalist now. So I was at the Ideal Home exhibition many years ago, and I had to dress up as a gorilla. Creature Comforts. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It was about 6 o'clock in the morning. I had to get down to Earl's Court. They strapped me into this gorilla costume. It was so big. I was holding these arms in, they strapped me into the actual costume, and then they put the head on, and I got absolutely claustrophobic. And the next thing is the booming voice of David Bellamy was right beside me. He said, "Don't worry, I've got my arm round you. We're going to have a cup of tea afterwards." So we had a cup of tea with David Bellamy. Yes, that was... not a very interesting story, really, but he says this Chris Packham, right?
A great guy.
It's based. Yes, he was. It was good fun. So he's decided to make a documentary for BBC Two titled Chris Packham, 7.7 billion people and counting. So he's going all around the world counting every new birth, you see. That's what this is about. He says, if people don't watch this and they don't think, then we're doomed. Well, I'd say we're doomed because people are watching things like this and they don't think, right? It says he's known for fronting the really wild show. Well, there's nothing really wild about him, is there? He says, we did everything we could to make this a programme which would prick up people's ears because it confronts them with any number of different issues, ethical, moral and biological. But wait a minute.
Well, that exile's anti-life.
But what about facts?
Well,
no facts. Packham travels around the globe in the one-off film to see the impact that our rapidly growing population is having. Well, let's have a look at what it says on Deagle.com and let's see how global populations are rising and falling. That's a very interesting thing to do. In fact, in the Western world, populations are falling, and in many parts of Africa, due to Bill and Melinda Gates, population's falling there as well.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
very interesting. I wonder if Mr. Packham will actually cover these sort of issues.
Yeah. Imagine if David Bellamy was the BBC's guy to respond on this, and everything they do would just get completely destroyed, because he would speak the truth, And I met him on a number of occasions, and he was very, very anxious that me and others would carry on the fight to end this false narrative.
Well, that's what we're here to do. It says he visits Brazil investigating how Sao Paulo is a mega city on the verge of running out of water. Now, this couldn't have anything to do with the UN wanting to privatise all the water and sell it off, could it? It couldn't have anything to do with that, could it? No, that's a conspiracy theory, isn't it? I mean, getting people ready for rationing is what this idiot is doing.
Water being used for fracking as well.
People ready for depopulating themselves and sticking their heads in the sand is what he's actually about. Literally, actually, the globalist-backed anti-globalist lobbying group ER buried their heads in the sand on an Australian beach this week. Did you know that?
Oh, I saw that picture.
Yeah, you saw
that
it.
Was mental.
Yeah.
I think they should have kept their heads in the sand, actually.
Yeah. It's absolutely incredible. He says, unfortunately, when it comes to addressing these issues, the finger is often pointed at sub-Saharan Africa. By who? What, by him? By the BBC?
Yeah.
By the middle-class Marxists of the BBC? Never. Because that is where the human population is growing most rapidly at the moment, and most rapidly in Nigeria. Hence our visit to Lagos, he explains. So he's going to say, oh God, we're on the verge of running out of water. There's too many people. Now, the thing is, right, if you go to a very contaminated and overpopulated city, is that a good reference to what's going on in the rest of the world?
Well,
not really. No, I don't think so.
Well, half the world population now do live in cities. And in my opinion, that ought to be decreased, and people should be living more and more in countryside.
Yeah, but the UN want everyone.
The UN agenda want everyone. Well, bar a few gatekeepers and animal keepers, possibly, or not even animal keepers. They want people to move into cities, into smaller boxes. Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, social cleansing.
Well, it's a bit more than that, Piers, but it is that at its core, and that's what people see on the ground. That's what we've been reporting on for years. We've covered how these council meetings are all using Delphi technique to steer people into the intended outcome. We've reported on it for years. Go back in the archives 2 or 3 years ago. We were at the cutting edge of this, weren't we? We're at the absolute cutting edge of it.
We still are.
Anyway, he says that, I mean, you can't make up what these people say. You know, the thing is that these entitled middle-class virtue-signalling idiots have got the most to lose, but they don't realise it yet. He says, we are very keen to address the fact that you can't point the finger at large families with poor black children as being the problem. Now, these people, they virtue signal themselves into racism, basically, don't they? Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's just unbelievable. So what they do is they try and hold themselves back, but they never can do it, can they? They by virtue signalling in this way.
I wouldn't say this, but people have said this, and then they repeat some racist attack, basically.
He says, actually, at this point, we in the UK are the problem, because when it comes to exacerbating climate change and biodiversity loss, we're the principal consumers. Of what? But the point is that we pay more carbon taxes than anybody else, right? We're the only idiotic nation that's fully signed up for it to be carbon neutral.
Yeah. But there's an interesting observation here that if you go on watch any Extinction Rebellion, they are a completely uniform group. 99% of them are trustafarians, I would say. They're well off, middle class, white, English, aged between 20 and 30. And other groups are hardly there at all. Interesting, and they preach their own guilt to each other and are completely unable to listen. And we were on demonstrating outside Australia House a few weeks ago where this was obvious. But interestingly, walking down the street, when we were giving out our leaflets showing the truth about the fires in Australia, people didn't want to take them because they thought we were part of the demo. Then we said, oh, no, we're against that. And they said, oh, yes, thank you. And they took these leaflets.
Yeah, the thing is, you see, it's all about everyone having to appear to agree. It doesn't mean they do agree. No. And that's what all these processes, mentoring people into this hive mind is all about. What they're doing is getting it to appear that the public are in agreement. That's what the citizens' assemblies are about. They're getting 50 people who can be mentored by a steering committee, which is what it is. It's a lobbying group. Do you know, for instance, who was the climate change advisor on the Oxford Citizens' Assembly on climate change, Piers?
No.
Miles Allen.
Oh, no!
Yes, tell us about Miles Allen, because
Well,
I told
Miles
him about him
Allen
this week.
was criticised in a California court for, well, in legal speak, he was called a liar. And, you know, he's now fronting all this stuff to mislead and oppress.
Absolutely. I mean, what he actually did in the court was made it look as though there was 10,000 parts per million instead of 0.04%, right? And the judge says, Mr. Allen, you made it look like there's 10,000 parts per million when there's how many?
Well, 400 is the actual number.
Yes, sir, I did. I'm sorry, he said. But the thing is, you see...
But it wasn't his only lie, that's why...
No, it wasn't his only lie, was it?
Was very dismissive of him and his evidence.
That's right. He said...
And the case failed, of course. The whole case failed.
Well, I had a climate lobbyist the other week saying this has all been proven in court. I sent him that and it shut him up. But this is the thing, you see.
They proved nothing in court. All their court cases have failed. And it's an amazing thing that even in California, a judge said, well, we do need to look at the facts. And the facts showed that they were lying.
Yes, but the judge had been paid by the oil industry.
Except the oil industry do back Miles Allen and the whole shooting match of man-made climate change because it enables them to put up prices.
This is a good one for you. This is just a great example. Let's get back to this Chris Packham character again, right? It says, in exploring how the world can rebalance its consumption to accommodate the needs of more than 2 billion more people, Packham even analyses his own lifestyle choices. Now, wait for it. You're going to love this one. You're going to love this one, right? Right. One of the crucial points in the film, he said, is where I honestly and embarrassingly point out I've got 10 hoovering devices. Now,
What?
Who the hell would bring up the fact
That's
they've got 10
mental.
vacuum cleaners in response to there's too many people on the planet, right?
So what's he going to do with 9 of them?
Are the vacuum cleaners breeding? They must be. He must have put 2 hoovers together and they're having a huge family. That must be what it is. But the vacuum is clearly and provably in his own head. I just had to get that in. I couldn't believe that. He says, that's exactly the root of the problem, because I've got no kids, but I've got 10 hoovers, and the cost of producing those and the batteries that are in them and replacing them, that's the damage we are doing in this point in time.
Yeah, but they're completely mad on electrical stuff now, and they're wanting more and more batteries to be made.
Well,
Cars,
yeah.
for hell.
Just don't let a fact get in the way, will you? On the topic of Packham having no children, a particularly memorable segment of the documentary sees him interview a couple going through IVF treatment. Oh dear! Basically then he had. His girlfriend is a zoo owner on the Isle of Wight.
Okay, well,
Tell the animal
mention
rights
the Isle of
activists.
Wight. The whole population of the world could fit on the Isle of Wight if they stood in 1 square yard.
Yeah, but not in his backyard or his zoo.
Oh well, perhaps he's got to put the vacuum cleaner somewhere.
Well, exactly. I mean, the lions and the tigers have got to have something to do, haven't they? You know, they can clean them up themselves, can't
You
they?
can vacuum the back of a tiger, can't you? Clean the dust off them.
Don't worry, though. The powers that be will make sure drones like you are reproduced in their droves, Mr. Packham, because you are what is called a useful idiot. And he's also a person who gives Asperger's a bad name. There's another person who does that, isn't there?
Ah, yes.
Won't bring her into it, though.
No. I
Don't want any hate speak on here.
No.
Why do you hate children? She's not a child. She's 17. I don't hate her at all.
But anyway, everything she says is said by her father. Or mother, or both.
And in typically kind of, well, let's say that he's benevolent and he's showing the fact that he's part of the collective hive mind. He made a show called Asperger's and Me. Asperger's and Me. So he's claiming Asperger's. It's all mine.
Oh,
My Asperger's is all about me.
That's bizarre.
Oh, God, it's brilliant, isn't it? So 7.7 billion people and counting. So I hope he's counting all of them. He's very disappointed if he doesn't. Now, the third one in this week's...
How many fish are there?
What, in the sea?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, nor do I, but maybe he should count them as well.
Well, he should really, but I mean, he's got vacuum cleaners to count, hasn't he? I mean, what are you talking about? He says here, The Times, this is from, John Humphreys is the ex-BBC presenter.
Yeah.
Takes a leaf out of Greta's book and quits flying. Okay? The former BBC...
Are you serious?
Wait for
Well, he
it.
hasn't got anywhere to fly to.
Wait for it. No, he hasn't. I'll tell you why. The former BBC Radio 4 Today presenter, John Humphreys, has given up flying to save the world from climate change. The 76-year-old announced yesterday that the Swedish environmental activist Greta Thunberg, 17, has a competitor, after vowing to give up air travel for the sake of the planet. The veteran broadcaster took the decision after getting a new passport. He said, when it expires in 10 years, I hope its pages will be as nakedly pristine as they are today, which begs the question as to why he bothered renewing the bloody thing, right? So what happened to these mental midgets?
Anyway,
Well,
they don't mark passport much anymore anyway.
no. They are agents of the state and get their validation from propaganda narratives like they've always done. Now, that is incredible, isn't it? They're queuing up to make bloody fools of themselves, these people, aren't they?
Yeah.
And there seems to be no shortage of them.
No.
But as Chris Packham said, they're overrunning the planet. They're expecting 7.7 billion idiots by 2030. But let's get on to a conspiracy theory which the media has made look very unconspiracy theory-like.
Oh, yes.
News.com.au. Conspiracists say lasers and exploding smart meters used to start bushfires to make way for a new train network. Now, actually, that's not what they're saying, but don't let that get in the way of the facts. Thousands of Australians appear to believe lasers and exploding smart meters are being used to start our bushfires to make way for a new train work. And then they show the map of where the fires are, and guess what? The fires are exactly where the new railway line's going to be, right? Exactly in the same place. So that conspiracy theory has been backed up by news.com.
So was it done by the fire raisers or what?
Well, let's put the question out there. Let's not be conspiracy theorists about this. A storyful investigation with news.com.au has found the conspiracy theory has spread far and wide on social media, with directed energy weapons posts being shared tens of thousands of times in the past few weeks. Those who believe, it says here, the theory says the bushfires in this unprecedented season are being started using weapons which harness the focused power of technology such as lasers or microwaves.
At all.
It's not unprecedented, no, and it's not unknown. It says, and many of the posts claim the fires have been deliberately started. Now, wait a minute. Now, you see how they mix it up here? So, 200 people have been arrested.
Some of them have been, yes.
200 people have been arrested for starting the fires.
Yep.
So then they start mixing that up with the conspiracy theory that they've so they make that sound like a conspiracy theory. And guess what? They say, and many of the posts claim the fires have been deliberately started by a shadowy global elite in order to clear land for a high-speed rail network from Brisbane to Melbourne. Well, there is a high-speed rail network planned, right, in exactly the same place as the fires. So, is it a shadowy global elite? No, I think they're doing it out in the open, aren't they? Basically, it says conspiracy theories say Australia's bushland is being cleared for this high-speed rail network. The deadly bushfires have also been seized on by networks of local and international conspiracy theorists, many of whom claim the fires are part of a UN-led global plot to depopulate the world and seize control for a one-world government under the guise for climate change. Where have they been for the past 25, 30 years? Do they not know that they have a conference on this every bloody year?
They do.
As part of the wider conspiracy, theorists believe the alleged high-speed rail link will force all of us into big cities where we can be controlled by the government. Well, why is this a conspiracy theory when the UN have openly announced it?
That's what they say. Yeah. And also in Britain, we have HS2, which is stated to do the same thing.
Yes. Well, this is interesting. So, the admin of one of the largest Facebook conspiracy pages wrote that residents in bushfire-affected communities say forests around their homes just exploded out of nowhere. The fires, that is.
Yeah.
Well, that's very similar to what happened in California, wasn't it? And what are they doing in California? They're making rewilding corridors and they're closing off public access to land, which is what this is all about. So I wonder if it's a conspiracy fact. I wonder if it is.
Well, I think it is. And people need to understand the origin of fires in Australia anyway, under the eucalyptus forest. But we'll do that in a minute when you finish this, I should think.
One blog post from a fringe conspiracy theory site, State of the Nation, linking the bushfires to the global warming hoax, has made a huge impact on social media. The article titled Operation Torch Australia, a special report on the geoengineered firestorms and DEW-triggered arson fires, claimed to draw striking parallels between the fires and previous wildfires in California. Well, there are striking parallels there. The post, alongside others from the site linking the Australian fires to directed energy weapons, had been shared thousands of times. Now, the point is that all this they do in this article is validate what they're calling a conspiracy theory. So it's kind of, it's like counterintelligence gone wrong. In other words, the counterintelligence, by calling it a conspiracy theory, has backfired because they actually show it to be fact within the article, which I thought was quite interesting in this case. It is.
But see, someone who didn't agree with us would just say, oh, it's all been dismissed in an article. And
well, that's what I had,
They wouldn't talk about the article content, but anyone who actually read it would think, oh my God, it must be true.
Yes. Well, that's what I sort of went over in the Big Green Ego, the show I did last week, when I actually tried to get people to see some facts and reason. And then next thing, I was Boris Johnson's best mate, and I'd clearly voted Brexit, despite. But you see, the thing is that I'd clearly voted Brexit. They said, "Don't talk to him, you voted Brexit." Now, there's no evidence that I did, and also I'm not on the electoral register, so I couldn't have done.
No. You could not have done.
I'm not saying that I wouldn't have voted Brexit. It's just that you see, the thing is, but this exposes what they do. It's like
it wasn't nominally what the election was about, but it was in fact what the election was about.
Yeah, but the point is that by saying that, they just kind of validate what you've just said. It's incredible. And then you point that out to them, and then they go, "You must be funded by the oil companies."
Ah, that's always the fallback.
That's right.
And then you point out that Maurice Strong was an oil billionaire and initiated the whole agenda.
Well, you got me into trouble the other week, because what they actually the one of them said, he said, as far as your climate change hoax conspiracy theories goes, I've only got two words to say, actually. And guess what they were? Piers Corbyn.
Exactly.
What do you mean exactly? Have you been reading it?
You told me this. Am I honoured to hear this? Possibly.
Yeah. Well, it says similar conspiracy theories around the fires have flourished on YouTube, with some videos also running ads on the platform, allowing channels to make money while spreading misinformation around the bush. Now, wait a minute. Every mainstream newspaper is full of these adverts, right?
Of course.
And every video you watch on it, you have to watch a half-minute load of crap before you actually get to the video, which is often nothing to do with what they've said it was about, right? Exactly. I think this is a huge own goal by the look of this one. It says one of the most active in claiming the bushfires were part of Australia of government plot has been Australian conspiracy theorist Max Egan, who has generated nearly 1 million views for his series of videos decrying the Australian Holocaust. So he's called it a perfect storm. Basically, the video had been shared more than 12,000 times on Facebook alone. Dr. Will Grant, a senior lecturer in science communications at the Australian National University, believes these theories were being spread by the far right. Oh my God. Right. I mean, these people have got just a few things in their head, haven't they? They've got conspiracy theorist, far right, anti-Semitic, fascist, or oil company, right? You only have to have six things, right?
And they support Brexit as well.
Well, clearly. However, yes, what we're seeing here is the far right taking this to an extreme, saying they're forcing us to be vegan and live in apartments, which is obviously not true. Well, wait a minute. Pick up any newspaper, and if you'd arrived from another planet, you'd go, why are they forcing them all to be vegan? Right. And why are they making them live in these small, tiny little 30 by 12 rooms? It's incredible, isn't it? However, what we're seeing here is the far right, you see. He said the theories around exploding smart meters and 5G being used for nefarious purposes play into legitimate concerns around big corporations and the data they have on us. So there he tries to add something of a conspiracy to the theory.
Big corporations are part of 5G.
Well, big corporations have all the data that they want on us. It's so deregulated. I mean, from Google onwards, DARPA, all of these things, Silicon Valley, all you have to do is start getting into a few of these stories. The intelligence gathering in this country is private now. You don't need the government to do it. It's ridiculous to even say a thing like that. And it's the same in Australia, because it's part of the Five Eyes, isn't it? The Five Eyes. Look that one up. Another concern is that foreign governments are spreading these conspiracies to exploit cracks in Western nations about climate change. So in other words, they're going to blame it on the Russians, right? Now, the funny thing is...
they're the foreign powers.
Yes,
of course.
But the Institute of Strategic Dialogue was actually caught spreading basically propaganda saying that Russia did it, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and then you've got the other thing.
Well, all that stuff attacking my brother in the run-up to the election was all the same stuff. I mean, the Russians did this or that and so forth. Nonsense.
I think you should get into what you want to talk about now, because I think it's been very lively so far. So crack on with Corbyn news.
All right, Corbyn news.
Yeah.
Two things to talk about. One is Australia fires and secondly, the general election result. The Australia fires, I think people ought to get clear in their minds, they are perfectly natural things. They've been going on for millions of years. And what we've had is the evolution of the combination of Australian fires and the eucalyptus tree. The eucalyptus tree is very oily, and when it burns at a very high temperature. And only eucalyptus seeds can survive this heat. So the point is, when you have these fires, the eucalyptus trees will survive and all other trees will be wiped out. That is why Australia being essentially a desert, that is why eucalyptus dominates all the trees and forests in Australia, which are around the edges towards the sea where there's slightly more rain. Now, this being a fact means that these things are natural. They're completely natural, and the Aborigines used to control them because they realised there were problems, so they would do their own burning. But when most Aborigines were killed, as you well know, by the British and others invading, these policies were not understood.
Well, it's also rewilding policies because they've stopped actually clearing.
But what they've done now, just to get the facts,
corridors.
In 1851,
yes,
there were 5 million hectares of Victoria burnt down in a short time. That was 1/3 of the state of Victoria, and that was almost as much as the whole of the fires in recent times in the whole of Australia. Now, it was realised then something had to be done. Nothing very serious was done until 1939, when what's called Black Friday happened. And after that, they had a proper policy for removing undergrowth, removing brush from these forests in a 5 or 10 year cycle. So basically, everything wouldn't be able to grow for more than 10 years. Now, that probably, it should be more often than that, has been pointed out, but now under green policies, they've reduced that to 1% every year. And that means the amount of wood brush makes these fires uncontrollable, completely uncontrollable. Because if you've seen any pictures of this wood brush, it's just tinder. It's tinder. And when that lights, however much water you put on it, it just will not be enough. So the reason for these fires now is, one, the deliberate ending of fire control policies, including cutting corridors to stop fires jumping across. That's one thing. Second thing is we have the situation of the circulation in the Indian Ocean, whereby what's called the Indian Dipole means there's high pressure over Australia and lower pressure the other side of the Indian Ocean, and that gives you this hot, dry situation. And the third thing, which of course captured all, if you like, is arson, deliberate arson. Now, with or without the arson, these fires would still happen, and most of them are ignited by thunderstorms, actually. So the arsonists can do their bit, and obviously they have been doing so. But just to be clear, there's nothing new what's going on, and what has made it worse is the policies of the Greens. So people are being killed and animals are being slaughtered by green policies in Australia now.
And Chris Packham's right. They've got water shortage in Australia too. Well, how did he know us? Who put this into his highly inactive and minuscule brain, I wonder?
Well, probably for water shortage because of stuff to do with fracking and so forth.
Well, no, China bought all their water up. China bought their water. I've been in countries where this has happened. I mean, privatisation of water is an obvious thing to control population, right?
Yeah.
Controlling food and water is essential in any totalitarian system, conspiracy theorists out there, if you want to look that one up. But in 1974, the fires were at least 25% worse than the ones we've had this year in Australia.
Yeah.
So that's a fact as
in
well.
1939 they were even worse. In 1851 they were astoundingly worse.
Yes.
So we're seeing improvement, but the improvement has been reversed by green policies. And all these people jumping up and down outside Australia House saying, do something, do something. Well, what should be done is their policies should be ignored.
Yes. Great stuff in chat tonight. Really good information in there. And thanks for the people who are in our exclusive little chat box at windowsontheworld.net. All that you have to do is sign into it. And we've got some interesting stuff in there, which I'm going to look at later on. Someone's just asked, are we going over tonight? And we're going to carry on for a bit. Well, we can do. But do please join us on these midweek excursions onto our YouTube channel while we're still there. And at 8 p.m. every Wednesday, I go out live, doing a live stream, and we're going to be covering lots of history and esoteric subjects, the like of which we used to cover, and we are going to pick that up again. And also...
So we're back in 10 minutes, are we?
Well, what we could do, actually...
We've got the general election to do, for example.
Well, we could do that, couldn't we? OK, we could have a little break and then come back. We could give you a time, and then we could have a little extra. We could do a show, which I think people would like that, because they seem to be buzzing out there. So, yes, look out for specials with Ahmed Osman, writer Ahmed Osman. We're going to be talking about Egyptian history. And there's a lot of other stuff coming up. I've got some great contacts of people with fantastic information. So those Wednesday shows are going to be extremely interesting. I have a bit of a laugh with Eric Von Essex on Thursday on the Eric Von Essex YouTube channel. And we take apart the stuff that we know and put out very often and take it down to conversation level, which I really like doing, because these Sunday shows are quite intense information. I do a lot of specials. Do listen to Archons of the New Age. That's a really important one and ties into this New Age global governance that we talk about a lot. And that one is really absolutely fascinating, the material in there. The Man Who Saw the Future, take a look at that one. The Man Who Saw the Future. That's where a lot of the policies that are being implemented now came from. They came from 1987, the World Wilderness Conference, attended by George Hunt, a businessman who spent the rest of his life trying to expose it. And yes, just to finish off, maybe I should play you what banker David Lang said at that conference, because they wanted to form a new conservation bank and a new world system. So we're going to come back we'll be back at 10:15. So that's the next show from this will be a follow-up. So let's just hear what David Lang had to say at that conference in 1987. We did put this on the other week, Archons of the New Age, but just get a load of...
I suggest, therefore, that this be sold not through a democratic process. That would take too long and devour far too much of the funds to educate the cannon fodder, unfortunately, which populates the earth. We have to take almost an elitist program that we can see beyond our swollen bellies and look to the future in time frames and in results which are not easily understood or which can be, with intellectual honesty, be reduced down to some kind of simplistic definition.
So, next time you get called a conspiracy theorist, use that little soundbite. You can actually download it. Also, help us on our Patreon page, because we have got a bit of help. I'm putting out a feature film called The Heretics of London. It's absolutely fascinating information, and it's all about heresy, which means able to choose. And it's a historical documentary. And you can see more information about that on our Patreon page. Go to windowsontheworld.net. Do please try and support us, because Windows Towers needs your help to keep going. I'm doing loads of research and putting out lots of information. We're going to be back in 15 minutes, or if you're listening on YouTube, it'll be the next show after this. So we'll be back at 10:15. See you in a bit. Join me, Mark Windows, for Windows on the World live every Sunday 9 to 11 p.m. GMT. Check out our archive and program stream at windowsontheworld.net.